Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking some time out today to attend our webinar on why cloud can help you achieve your business objectives. My name is Selena and I'm here to help you with anything you may need during the webinar. So today I'm actually joined by our presenters, James Hughes and Paul Brassington. But before we start, I'd just like to go through a few housekeeping. So on our panel, on your panel on the right, you'll see a right-hand like a symbol, an icon. So if you're facing any issues, if you click on the hand icon, I can help you and assist you with anything, be it audio, visual, or just connection issues that you may have. Also on the panel, you'll see a section called questions, and inside that is a text box. So please feel free to ask any questions in that text box throughout the webinar, and we'll aim to answer as many questions as we possibly can. We'll be answering majority of the questions towards the end of the webinar. But like I said, if you've got anything that's you want to ask, just put it into that box. I'm more than happy to answer it for you. I am now going to hand you over to James Hughes and Paul Brassington.
Thank you, Selena. Hello, everyone. A warm welcome to you all, and thank you for taking the time to be with us for the next, I guess, 30 or 40 minutes or so. My name's James Hughes. I manage much of Sabio's private and public cloud propositions, and I've been helping clients move on their journey to the cloud for a number of years now. I'm also joined by my good friend and colleague, Paul Brassington. Paul, could you just introduce yourself, please?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thank you, James. Again, I'd just like to echo James's comments and welcome everybody, and thank you for taking the time today. I guess, kind of during my time at Sabio and before Sabio, I've spent a lot of my time kind of helping businesses evolve and change as customer demands have kind of changed over quite a period of time now. My focus really has been around trying to help businesses that really achieve some sort of consistency across engagement channels. So I guess omni-channel is a term that many of you will be familiar with. So kind of getting voice and digital channels working coherently for businesses. Over the last 5 years or so, we've been kind of really focusing on helping businesses move to the cloud, and talking about the cloud and sharing our experiences and some of the pitfalls and some of the challenges that businesses kind of face when they go on that journey. And now I'm kind of looking more to kind of multi-experience. So when we talk about multi-experience, we talk about not just the customer experience, but also the agent experience in parallel. So the technologies that agents and customers use, and trying to achieve the best outcomes for both user groups, really. That's me.
Brilliant. Thank you, Paul. So let's talk about cloud. And I know everyone does at the moment, and but hopefully what Paul and I have pulled together for you today is, well, I think it is quite a bit different. We really, in these sessions, and we're hoping to have some follow-up sessions, we really want to help you consider the different routes and paths to the cloud, but probably more importantly in these sessions is help you assess the cloud service options that you may have in front of you, and you know what you may be evaluating. I guess from Paul and my experience is that often on the surface, these sort of cloud providers can look very similar. They often have very similar feature sets, or you could put another way, they tick a lot of boxes in terms of features and capabilities, but how do you assess the right option? And is there really true, genuine feature parity? So that's an area we want to explore with you. And you know, ultimately, is one cloud service or capability more aligned to your needs than another? So we'll look into that. We'll come onto this photo in just a minute, but I guess over the last few months and the context of the pandemic, cloud has really enabled us to continue functioning, shopping, working from home, etc. So cloud is more important than before, and there is a lot of focus on moving to cloud at the moment. And there is a big but in this, and I think it's something that I'm seeing in the market, and Paul and I have been talking about this, is that with the recent pandemic, there's been an even greater focus on how to move to the cloud. And I think what we're seeing is that actually organizations are missing the why move to cloud. And I think, we really need to center ourselves back and understand why cloud is important for us, and why it can help us in times of, pandemic situations, but also how can it help you on your customer experience journey. So we thought we'd hold this webinar really to share some of our experiences with you, give you some advice around how to assess and determine what cloud is right for you when it comes to customer experience, and maybe cloud might not be the option or the right path for your business. So we're going to explore some of that today. So Paul, why don't you just have a quick chat about this photo?
Yes, indeed. So I think hopefully most of you will have seen this photo. It was clearly kind of made headline news quite recently. It is, of course, Bournemouth Beach. It was taken on, I believe it was the 26th of June. And I guess, it's quite an emotive photograph. When people kind of see this, they react in a kind of certain way, and I think different people react differently. What I'd like to ask is if you kind of just put your emotions aside just for a moment, and maybe think about a little bit more why it happened, because that, after you get kind of past that emotional reaction to something like an event like this that clearly kind of makes headline news and is over publicized in some respects, you kind of then start to take this reflective mindset where you kind of think, well, hang on a minute, clearly something's happened here. And I think, the people, for me, as I reflected on it, I kind of thought, well, the people have clearly gone there to achieve an outcome. And I think that's, that's human nature, really. There'll be an element of people who kind of are coming out of a period of time that, none of us have truly experienced since probably World War II, when we kind of coming out of a period of having the one thing that we've fundamentally got used to, which is our freedom, essentially taken away from us. So there was a bit of an element of release, I think, in people kind of going to the beach, and clearly they kind of went there with a view to, I want to kind of sit on the sand, I want to have an ice cream, I want to sit in the sun, and maybe I want to kind of play in the sea with some family and friends. There'll be another group of people who clearly kind of maybe saw people posting on social media that they had plans to go to the beach. So maybe they reacted to that kind of that view or that plan, and clearly thought, well, clearly that's something we should be doing as well. We don't want to kind of miss out. And I think if we just build the slide, it kind of comes back to this kind of fear of missing out. Ultimately, we've heard a lot about kind of herd immunity. There was a lot of talk about herd immunity back in kind of March, April, but what about herd mentality? A kind of group of people congregating on a beach, not necessarily planned, but going there with a view to I want to gain something out of this, and I want to achieve something. So and I think when you start to think about it a little bit more, you can probably categorize the people who both did and didn't go for whatever reason as in broadly maybe three categories. So you've got the people who are just natural risk takers, that they kind of didn't even maybe think about the risks. They kind of thought, well, that's kind of what I want to do. I'm frustrated. I've had my children at home for a long period of time with me. I just want to get out there and I want to experience. And these people maybe weren't blessed with the luxuries of a big garden or a park that was local that they could use, and clearly just wanted to kind of have holiday season on a beach as they would do in any normal year. There'd be some people who kind of challenged that thought process, who kind of thought, well, should I go to the beach? Is it the right thing to do? How many other people are going to the beach? And then they may have thought, well, I still want to get those outcomes. I still want to sit on the sand. I still want to sit in the sun. I still want to have my ice cream, and maybe still went. And then there'll be another group of people who clearly kind of looked at a situation and thought, you know what, the pubs are opening tomorrow night. Is it really a great idea for me to go? Is that not what everybody will be thinking in their minds? And I don't want to put myself at any undue risk, having gone through this period of time where I've worked so hard, and as a population we've worked so hard to try and kind of beat this virus that's been kind of thrust upon us. So James, have you got anything to?
Yeah, well, exactly that. And when you look at this situation, there actually was another approach. So This is a photo of Durdledore Beach. It's in Lulworth, which is about a 30-minute drive from the Bournemouth beach. It was also taken on the 26th of June. And on the surface, the features were very similar to Bournemouth Beach. There's sand, there's sea, there's sunshine. Maybe you could get an ice cream there as well. I'm not entirely sure about that. You could say that in terms of features, those two beaches had parity. But
clearly the journey to get there was a little different. You know, actually the outcome might be the same, but when you look at it through a slightly different lens, you know, the journey was the same, was completely different, but the outcome was essentially the same. And I don't think, just interjecting briefly, I don't kind of think we're here to say, you know, going to Durdledore Beach was necessarily the right thing to do. It was a different outcome. Some people would have enjoyed going to Bournemouth Beach. Some people would have enjoyed the thrill of being there as being part of what they feel like a community that's being brought back together again. And maybe would have had a propensity or a preference to maybe go to Bournemouth over Durdledore, I think.
Yeah, and this sort of brings us back to the how and the why. And I think it's really important for us to make sure that you guys joining this webinar, taking your time, is really understand the why and make sure that the outcome that you're looking for is the outcome that you actually achieve. So that's part of what these webinars are about. So so Selena, I just wondered if we could just run our first poll, please. Be really interested to know everybody's thoughts who've joined us here today.
So I guess as we're kind of waiting for some of the replies to come in, you may be thinking that, you know, maybe you kind of sit in one or two categories here. Instinctively though, just kind of go with what your heart tells you, I think would be my advice. James, would you put yourself into one of these categories, or could you?
Well, for me, I'm quite bullish. So I guess, you know, I don't live anywhere near Bournemouth Beach, but if I had, I probably would have been the Bournemouth Beach kind of person. I would, you know, wanted to be with people, you know, crowded place. I'd spent 3 months, you know, missing that social contact. That probably was the outcome I was looking for. And probably more importantly for me, the path to get there was really quick if I lived in Bournemouth. What about you?
Well, you know me. Yeah, I'm probably between two, to be honest. I'm definitely not a 1 or a 4. You know, as with many things that I kind of tend to do in life, I need some clarity. I need some sort of opinion to kind of support the decision that I make. So I guess I'd probably err more towards 3. Yeah, I think it's easy to kind of make an assumption as to what these answers categorize you as, but you know, I don't think that I'm necessarily stuck in my ways if that's what 3 suggests. I love new experiences. I love doing different things. Probably just need a prod from time to time. So you know, I'm of the mindset that if something's not broken, then why replace it? But maybe that's the idealist, environmentalist within me. I don't know. But yes, I'd probably go for 3.
Okay. So so Selena, can you share the results, please?
Yes, so we actually got good responses. So I can actually see that 38% have said cloud can deliver the outcome. They just need to justify it internally. 50% said how can cloud improve what I already have, and 13% said don't know or undecided.
Okay, great. So interesting. So I think the context of the majority of the answers, actually you're in the right place, because as we go into this next section, we're gonna talk about some of this. But I guess in summary, you know, we said at the beginning that there was no right or wrong answer there. Everybody's different. You know, it's really good news that everybody's different. All organisations, different people within them, different approaches, different mindsets. That's how brands are built and unique propositions are created in the marketplace. So it's great to see a bit of a spread there in the results. You know, you only have to look at Paul and myself. We work together every single day, have done for many years. We have totally different mindsets and approaches. You know,
I think to be fair, if I just interject there, you know, I'm with the majority here, which was nice to see, and I think I also keep you grounded, to be honest with you, James.
Well, I keep giving you that prod to make sure you discover exciting new things on a daily basis. But the really good news here is whatever approach you have, whatever mindset you have in your colleagues back in your organisations, there is a cloud service and a cloud outcome that will suit your business. And if cloud isn't the answer, there's, you know, as a complete move to the cloud, then there are definitely cloud services that you can overlay over your current platform that you have invested in already, that can, you know, that can take your customer experience to new heights. So that's really good news. So let's really start to get into the bones of this webinar. So fundamentally, in this sort of first focus area, cloud economics, it really does have to add up. There has to be some kind of return on investment or flat cost or whatever, because there's no point in adopting a cloud service that fundamentally just doesn't work for your business economically. So we're gonna take a look into this. I think there's a couple of other fundamental things that people who are considering a move to cloud from a typical on-premise platform is that quite often you're moving to a platform that you own, perpetual ownership, which in terms of your balance sheet, you can depreciate that asset over the useful life of that, whatever it is you purchased. Often cloud services are a sort of more of a rental SaaS kind of model, whereby you don't own it, and therefore you can't you can't depreciate the cost of that service. So it's quite, you know, it's really important you work with your finance organization, your CFO or whoever, to make sure that if you're considering a move to a traditional kind of rental-based SaaS cloud model, that isn't going to have a massive impact on your balance sheet. So that's really important. I guess that's also quite important why Sabio, in terms of the cloud capabilities that we have, we've built both private and public cloud solutions with perpetual ownership models and the sort of more sort of common rental ownership models. So that's really important focus. What we're going to look at now, I think it's quite interesting really, is if you are looking at the economics of your current on-premise customer engagement, customer experience platform, and comparing that to a cloud capability, you really should understand the true cost of ownership of your on-premise platform, and really take some time to carefully consider what that looks like. The true cost of ownership of your on-premise platform is very personal to each organization and your business and your own circumstances, of course. However, you know, Paul and I and our colleagues in Sabio, we've helped many organizations assess this very important factor when evaluating cloud services. And we've collected our research over a number of years, and we've listed here in the chart the main costs, and we've averaged those out across all of the sort of client engagements we've had over the years. And what we thought we'd do is just list top 3 mistakes when evaluating your current cost of ownership, or mistakes or misconceptions. And so we just really want to cover these. I mean, based on the chart, it shows that the average spread in these 4 areas, it shows that the biggest area is usually with inability to innovate. And what that usually has is a direct translation to people cost, usually agent headcount, actually, and through an inability to unify digital channels with voice channels, maybe the limited ability with your on-premise platform to innovate and automate and remove bad demand and use technologies such as AI, etc. And I think one of the things that gets, and Paul might elaborate in a moment, the thing that gets missed here most of all is organizations look at their agents as a cost, and yes, obviously they are a cost, and often they are the #1 cost of a business, but they're also your #1 primary asset in driving revenues and customer experience and retention and all those good things. So yeah, I don't know if you want to talk about it.
Absolutely, James. I completely agree, and I was going to kind of, maybe interject at this point, because I think that last one is absolutely key to me. It's, I think businesses generally, the majority of businesses realise that the potential benefits of moving to cloud, not necessarily moving everything to the cloud, but certainly consuming services to the cloud in a very agile way that can benefit the business. But in my experience, when I kind of sit down and I start to talk to businesses about that journey, I can inherently see fear in people's eyes, particularly, people who are in the kind of IT part of the business. They kind of start to think, I know my job, I've been doing my job for so many years, my job's going to be taken away because I'm not needed. When we talk about TCO, I think it's absolutely essential that we qualify that in the right way. So, the costs that we attribute to a TCO when we're looking at kind of helping businesses potentially move some or all of the services to the cloud, it's the costs that are associated with, the mundane and tedious activities that people inherently have to do. So, checking daily logs, checking alerts, checking where backups run, continually monitoring the platform, applying security patches and vulnerability packages. All these type of activities can consume quite a bit of somebody's time. It could be 25–50% of somebody's time on a kind of day-to-day basis. When you go through a big upgrade, it could be 100% of that person's time for a period of time. And it's that kind of element that we want to kind of take away and say, do you know what, there are cost savings to be made there. But let's make no bones about it, those people who are kind of being absorbed in those activities, they're typically intelligent people, they're skilled people, the people that believe and want to be part of your business. And, you kind of really should be embracing that and kind of looking at ways in which to redeploy those people. So whether it's, I don't know, I've seen a lot of industries or a lot of businesses kind of roll out bots, for example, but typically in a poor way. They kind of don't, they kind of do the deployment and then they don't train the bot. So, that there is an element of kind of IT support in training a bot and kind of looking at it through a customer's lens and making sure that bot is actually of value, that, it's not inhibiting customer experience, it's actually kind of making it a better experience for a customer. Similarly, there's normally a raft of MI sat within a business, and it's very difficult to get people's time when the day jobs are consumed with kind of just maintaining and managing systems, to kind of actually start to look at that MI and work with the business users to kind of extract that MI, get the information you want from it, and look at why you're getting repeat callers, why are people jumping from a voice channel to a digital channel, start to really kind of drill down into some of the reasons why that's happening. There are so many, I've just mentioned two there, but there are so many different activities that, valued resource can be redeployed. So when you look at the TCO, really, you look at the kind of effort, you look at it twofold. You've got the effort consumed by the low value activities that you're kind of taking away, but you're actually releasing the time to spend on activities such as the ones that I've just kind of alluded to, that directly inhibit kind of business improvement and enhancements. So, all this is achievable through release and redeployment of skilled and value staff members, in my mind. So that last one is absolutely key for me.
And of course, the agent engagement, through many cloud services, they're going to help agents feel more empowered to execute on your strategy to improve customer experience or increase sales, grow revenues, retention, or whatever. Data from 2019 suggested that in UK's contact centres, on average, agent attrition is 25%. I mean, that strikes me as a ridiculously high number. And when you consider that the average cost of replacing an agent is £6,000, in an average 250-seat contact centre, that attrition is probably costing that organisation, almost £400,000 a year. So if you consider TCO and your ability to empower and engage your agents through a new cloud service, that has a TCO implication that is a vast and considerable TCO implication. So I think that's really, really important. We've got a little present for you here. Everyone on this webinar, when we finish this webinar, we will send you a tool that we've built for you that will help you assess your current total cost of ownership of your on-premise platform. And we've done it in such a way that you would enter some data points into this tool, and what it will do is it will give you an output from all of your data points of all your internal costs, and it will give you an outcome that is expressed as a per agent per month cost. And why have we done that? Well, that allows you then to evaluate that cost in line with the most common sort of approach for a cloud provider, in terms of a cloud service or cloud provider will usually display their fees as a per agent per month kind of fee. So this tool we've developed for you, I mean, I really suggest that you make yourself a cup of coffee, have a virtual coffee with other colleagues within your business, get together for a couple of hours and work through this exercise. I think you will find a lot of value in doing it, and it will summarize and bring to the surface very, very clearly what your current cost of your platform actually is, and it will give it to you, as I said, in a per agent per month fee. The tool automatically does that for you, and then you will then be able to compare that and evaluate that against the cloud service options that you may be looking at. It will come pre-populated with a fictitious company called Wisewater. It's a 250 agent contact center with details that are populated. The data is real data averaged from lots of client engagements that Paul and I and our colleagues in Sabio have had over the years. So it's it will give you a really good indicator on where you can focus. So that tool will be coming to you after this webinar, and maybe in the next webinar of this series, maybe we'll do a poll and just check sort of what you guys found, whether it was in line with your expectation or whether your total cost of ownership was much more than you really understood or expected. So we'll look at that in the next webinar. So just going to come on to then the focus. So we've covered the sort of economics of a cloud move, and we're going to provide that tool, as I said. In this next area, I'm going to hand over to Paul really to focus on this. So in our focus 2 area, we're going to look at how flexible is flexible. We're challenging that in terms of, I think the perception of cloud services is that they're extremely flexible. So I'm going to hand over to Paul now to talk you through this area.
Thanks, James. So yeah, I think we've kind of talked a little bit about commercials. We'll kind of build out a little bit as we kind of go through the next couple of slides. But I did want to kind of pause for a second here and think about this concept of flexibility. A lot of businesses, when they're thinking about cloud services, they naturally think about kind of there's a flexibility associated with those services, but it's just a really interesting one for me. I think in a lot of ways that mindset is being driven in along kind of two different ways really. Our day-to-day lives, when we consume services from the cloud, that we look for flexibility, and also it's what a vendor is and some of the providers are kind of openly advertising in terms of our solutions are highly flexible. But what do we mean in terms of flexibility? How do we define what that word is? Because I think it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, particularly when you start to think about cloud contact center solutions and services. I think we need to kind of put the word flexible in context when we're talking about a specific kind of area of industry such as that. So I've seen a lot of marketing from some of the providers saying we'll have you up and running in 48 hours. I've seen that consistently and repeatedly as a kind of hook, as a way of advertising to attract businesses to say, wow, that is really very flexible, that is easy, how quickly can I kind of switch this on and be up and running. But what about leaving? Is it 48 hours to leave? And the reality is do you want something to kind of be up and running in 48 hours, or would you ever want to leave something in 48 hours? It might be in another context, but certainly when you're thinking about, something that has such a significant level of investment in terms of manpower, time, effort, to kind of want to kind of put all that time and effort into doing something, you probably don't want it necessarily, I would argue, up and running in 48 hours. And similarly, you probably won't want to move away in 48 hours. But I'll come on to that. I've got another slide that I'll kind of talk a little bit more about that. And there are other things to consider as well. This isn't just a kind of flexibility, isn't just about starting or stopping a service. When we think about situations like the current pandemic, does the flexibility that is being advertised really support businesses to be able to cope within, I guess, what I would say a reasonable commercial framework? So, when you're looking at some of the services, the things you've got to look for are what are you actually signing up to? And typically, a lot of providers will kind of demand or enforce a level of commitment. But then what happens if you kind of want to go up or down from that level of commitment? You don't want to be in a situation where you're having to react to a situation like COVID-19 and then kind of being commercially punished for doing so, by having kind of expensive hourly or monthly models that kind of don't truly support what you're trying to achieve when you spent all that time going through your TCO modeling. I think businesses should be prepared to kind of factor in kind of overage type charges, but that they should be absolutely clear, and you should be clear in your own minds, within a reasonable framework or a reasonable set of parameters, what you might expect to happen in 6 months' time or a year's time whilst you're consuming this service. We talked a bit quite recently at Savio about this concept of peak voice, which was a concept based on, voice volumes have kind of been incrementally increasing over a number of years, but now they're plateauing and they're going to start to diminish, and you're going to see people shift away to an extent. Voice, I don't think voice will ever go away, but they'll move away to some of the digital channels that are now available. But I think, if COVID-19 has proven anything, it's proven that the future is unpredictable. The voice traffic has probably gone astronomical over the last period of months, while people have been desperately trying to get all the businesses to have queries resolved, to order things that they need that haven't been as easily accessible as they have been in the past. So flexibility for me is about being able to cope with these type of scenarios as well as what the kind of vendors and providers would believe us to believe it is. So if we just kind of maybe move on to the next slide, if that's okay, Jane. Now, some of you who are as old as me will hopefully remember this advert. This was a kind of a Nick Parks creation, Creature Comforts. It was used in, I think it was a Heat Electric advert. And what they did, they interviewed a number of different people from the public, and they kind of used their quotations as part of the adverts, but they kind of used caricatures to represent those people. And one of the questions that was asked that the kind of turtle or tortoise answered in this scenario was, what do you want from your electricity provider? And the simple answer was, I want it easily turn on and offable. And I think that's fine for consumable services such as electricity and gas, and even maybe storage, if you kind of think about the kind of world of IT. If we modernize that concept, if we think about us as consumers, when we sign up to a service, whether it's Spotify, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, and those of you out there like me have got kind of children, have got all of those, but you still want to be able to cancel it at a month's notice. But this comes back to my point about business services. So, if you've got a unified communications platform and you've got a contact center platform that your business has invested in and spent time configuring and building and training users on and achieving user adoption, do you really want that to be cancelable in the same way? Or should we be thinking about a year or two out maybe? So, think about what it is you actually want when you kind of think about it in terms of flexibility. You may be paying a premium for a shorter term contract that is in reality not something you'd ever want or execute a write against. Maybe think of it more in terms of, as you start to go through this onboarding process, you might want to think, and we've worked with businesses to do pilots and proof of concepts to kind of familiarize themselves with technology, and look at what outcomes they want to achieve from it. I think, as you go into those type of exercises, it's key to identify what your success criteria is. It's very easy to kind of switch on a piece of technology in 48 hours and then get drawn into something that is kind of intriguing or interesting or exciting, but that you would never maybe use within your business. So kind of make sure that you kind of go into the process in the right mindset and with a clear set of objectives is what advice I would give. Similarly, when you start to talk about contract length, you also start to think about turning things on and off during midterm. This isn't about I'm signing up to something for a number of years and I'm happy with that. The world's changing around us, so you've got evolving customer demands, you've got new channels coming out on a almost a daily basis. You've got business processes that are changing. So that might dictate the need to want to be able to kind of switch things on and off as you go through the term of your engagement with that organization. And lastly, think about the exit strategy. How do you migrate away? This isn't a case of just kind of switching something on and switching something off like electricity and gas. Typically you'll have complex and continually evolving business operations. You'll have developed business logic. So for example, call routing flows, interaction flows, custom reports, integrations maybe to other systems and applications, business MI, all of this information. You need to think about how you can maybe kind of retain ownership and get that out at the end of the term of your contract. All really good questions. And clearly, if you create some business IP within that platform, again, how transportable is that at the end of the term? So, switching something on may be an easy decision, but it's only really part of the start of the process. Making the right decision now needs to consider the future as well. So, all important things I think to think about when you are kind of going on a journey to the cloud, irrespective of what service and the scope of what that service looks like.
Paul, just on that point, on the overage point, and we're talking about peaks and troughs, and obviously you talked about peak voice there, which is important. And we've seen from recent months that contact centres have been overwhelmed from a voice perspective. Those on cloud platforms with high overage fees, might be economically having some problems with the sort of increasing costs. Just making up a headline number of £100 per agent per month, just off the top of my head, £100 per month. Obviously, you need to think about that in terms of your peaks and troughs, expected peaks and troughs in your business, and how many agents do you need at £100 per agent per month? Do you need 80 and you need 10 on one particular month? All of those things you need to consider rather than just the headline figure. What is a full year in a cloud service to cost, and over the peaks and troughs of my normal business, and what unpredicted, what things that I can't predict might, do I need to think about, and what would that look like if it happened?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good point. Really good point. So maybe kind of move on to the next slide, if that's okay, James. So if we just kind of build this out, I think, I kind of just wanted to kind of summarize, I guess, this kind of section around flexibility to talk about some of the concepts that relate kind of to cloud specifically that you may or may not have thought about. It's more of a checklist than anything else. So, the icons along the top are kind of there to represent, and I'll go through them kind of left to right. So, the contractual commitment, we've talked a little bit about this, but how long is just right for your business? Consider again the time and effort that you're investing into kind of onboarding a service in order to kind of work out how long you want your contract to commit to. Just to give you an example, a business with many sites might have a longer rollout process, so it might take 6 months to get the system in use within all of the offices, or even longer. So those businesses will probably happy to sign up to a longer term contract, and having a short term contract doesn't really offer them any real advantage to do so. Whereas a small, more agile business that's still evolving might see a service, an alternative service that offers a kind of better value, better capabilities. So they might want to be more nimble in terms of, we'll switch it on and have it up and running within weeks, but in 6 months, a year's time, we might be looking to kind of move on to something different. So think about your contractual commitment and put that into the relationship between that and your business, I guess. Upfront versus kind of ongoing costs. So CapEx versus OpEx is a financial term that we kind of use quite a lot these days. And again, if we think about that, if we think about the utility example, so when you sign up to a new gas or electric provider, there are different tariffs. Some typically have a standing charge plus a consumption rate, whereas some are just based on pure consumption. OpEx or pure consumption might sound more appealing, but have you done the real true cost analysis? Have you kind of looked at what your consumption model would be using historical trend data that is related specific to your business and working out which model works best for you? Because the CapEx OpEx split might actually be better value over time. Again, you might have a financial desire to kind of go more OpEx for accounting reasons, but just maybe think about that. The next one was kind of this concept of, and again, maybe read the small print, named versus concurrent, really important. Or you might see the term seats as well. So, concurrent typically attracts a premium, but offers greater flexibility. The best value option for you and your business, you'll need to look at kind of both options and weigh them up. So shift patterns, for example, might play an important part in this. So think of a business that's got 3 shift patterns. So if I think about the hours that my dad used to work way back when, 6 till 2, 2 till 10, 10 till 6. If you've got 10 people working each of those shifts, then clearly the concurrency model is probably more advantageous because you're sharing the licenses. But if it's just a fixed shift pattern, so if you're just doing 9 till 5, then you're only going to have 10 people on, so you're not going to need the concurrency. You can do that on a named basis, and named will probably work out cheaper for that business. So kind of think about how your business operates, work out which kind of model probably works best for you. If we think about fixed versus consumption as well, so this is again looking at what kind of your usage would have been over the past year. So get your last year's worth of data. This is about fixing a price versus consuming a price. So for example, if you're consuming telephony services from the cloud, some companies will kind of just charge you a fixed rental fee, whereas some will charge you a per call fee. So again, look at the amount of calls that you've made, the length of those calls, and work out which model best suits your business. The next one, we kind of touched upon this. This is kind of all in relation to overage. Don't just look at the price that you're getting on day one, but I would encourage you to factor in overage. So, if we work on the 80-20 rule, think about maybe going 20% over of what you've committed to 20% of the time. Work that into your cost modeling and kind of make sure that you're not being financially penalized for consuming more service, which should be argued as an advantage to the vendor or a provider. And the last one was again kind of just reflecting again on the exit strategy. So data ownership, data migration, we talked about this, but if your business kind of changes strategic direction, or your functional or business requirements change, or maybe you see a competitive vendor who surpasses the capabilities of your own provider, you've kind of got to have a thought process of how you kind of move your business from one to the other, how potentially painful that is, and how you can maybe kind of get data out of the system and kind of move it across. If one thing, history has taught us one thing, and that's IT always moves in cycles. So your business might outlive that of your provider. Just consider that for a second as well, and think about how you plan for the future, not just plan for today.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Paul. I was just going to just thinking about time. I just wanted to move us because we've got a couple more things to cover actually, if that's all right with you.
Absolutely.
So let me just quickly summarise what we've talked about in these 2 focus areas. So So to recap, we've had a look at the commercials. We've got a tool that we're going to give you for the working out your own total cost of ownership of your current platform to allow you to evaluate that in line with a cloud service that you might be looking at. And we've talked about, you know, working with your finance teams to make sure the sort of move to cloud from on-premise or perpetual to rental, you know, doesn't have an adverse effect on your balance sheet. That's really important. And then Paul has taken on a bit of a journey around some of the thinking that you should probably be adopting when looking at the flexibility of a cloud service. So that's been a key focus of this session. Paul, could I ask you to just give a bit of an insight about the next webinar?
Yes, absolutely. So when we started to kind of pull this webinar together, you know, I think we envisaged that we'd probably be able to cover cloud in one webinar, particularly given that it is quite a mature concept now, and I think a lot of businesses understand what the cloud is and the benefits that they can get from it. But it soon became apparent that, you know, we had so many areas that we wanted to talk about and explore, and you know, we're really keen for people to kind of get involved and maybe have somebody else talk to us about their experiences as well, particularly during the COVID period. So if anybody kind of has an interest in maybe getting involved in a future webinar, please let us know. But you know, the next one that we kind of thought about, a good topic to cover would be operational change and impact. So you know, this is what I'm kind of moving to the cloud, what the impact that has on your business, and what are the type of things that you need to think about. So moving away from these kind of contractual commercial conversations about what cloud is logistically, but you know, what it means to your business. So as a little bit of a taster, I kind of shared this, which is a really interesting graph for me. I stole this from Contact Babel. They recently published a report, the Inner Circle Guide to Contact Center Remote Working. It was published this year. It was published in April. But this is actually a study that was undertaken by Channel Doctors. And what it shows is that, you know, pre-COVID-19, 4% of, less than 4%, so I think it was 3.8% of agents were working remotely from home on a permanent basis. Given the kind of challenges that presented themselves pretty much overnight, and given the kind of challenges that contact centers had in an environment that was decimated by the coronavirus, many businesses urgently started implementing business continuity plans, which clearly often involved remote working. So whilst 13% are still continuing to function through mainly a kind of centralized traditional contact center office environment, a staggering 84% have now moved to a home-based environment. And I kind of found that quite incredible. You know, the nimbleness and the agility demonstrated pretty much overnight, after years, if not decades, of operating in a fixed and consistent way, is testament to what the art of the possible is, particularly with technology today. But for me, and this is the really important piece, this is not just about businesses and it's not just about technology. There are real people here, and they have to adapt to such dramatic change in their lives, literally overnight. So, you know, many people aren't as fortunate as probably James, myself, many of you out there, where, you know, we have a home office, we have an environment, home environment that lends itself to being a place of work. But I suspect a lot of people haven't, and they've had to adapt as well. And it's those sort of considerations and challenges and journeys that those people have been on that we would like to explore a little bit more in our next webinar. So hopefully that's an interesting topic of conversation, and it's kind of piqued your interest a little bit, hopefully.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah. Yeah, and of course, you know, many cloud solutions out there available to you will help engage your agents better, especially if they're going to be home-based or remote-based for a while. So that's important. I just wanted to just listening to you there, Paul. There's a couple of things I just wanted to touch out. I think just coming back to sort of the whole ethos of this. The headline features of cloud services may look the same, but the outcome and the journey to get there can be fundamentally different. So that's going back to the, you know, it's got the sand, it's got the sea, it's got the sun, it's got the ice cream. But you can still have, even with parity on those features, you can still have very different customer experience outcomes for both your employees and your agents, but also your end customers. So that's important. And I would just I just wanted to, and remember, focusing on the why move to the cloud rather than how will probably help you get a better outcome that you're looking for. So that was really just to summarize the sort of ethos and the thought of the session today. Selena, are you there?
Hi.
I just wondered, just to touch base with you, have we had any questions that have been posed to Paul and myself?
Yes, we've got a couple of questions coming through, but due to the time, I think we'll answer about 2. So I apologise if we haven't answered your questions. We will do that on the follow-up. But here's a question for you both. One is, in your experience, do cloud-based solutions typically offer a more favourable TCO?
Well, I'll take that one. So that's a really good question. I would say, on the whole, yes, when an organisation considers their full total cost of ownership. That's the thing. If you don't consider the full cost of ownership, then maybe cloud might look expensive. But cloud is there to make you more efficient, improve engagement, and give you capabilities and flexibility. And we talked about flexibility a lot today, that you probably don't have today, and those add a lot of value, and therefore, there is a return on investment in those things. So all I could say is, based on the clients that we've engaged with, in most cases, there's been a very positive return on investment from moving to the cloud. Definitely.
Just to add, that's kind of one of the reasons, I guess, James, why we created a tool to help businesses, because when you kind of sat doing your day job day in day out, it's a little bit, so sometimes a little bit difficult to extract yourself from that process and think about all of the different attributes or considerations that you might need to consider when you're looking at a move to the cloud. So we thought it'd be really useful to give the people who've kind of taken the time out to attend today, to give them something back, a tool to kind of arm them with, to help them kind of work that out for themselves, really.
Yeah. Any other questions, Leah?
Yes, I can see another one coming in. This person's asking, should I be concerned about security when considering storing my business data in the cloud?
Yes. You should be concerned. It's an important consideration, and you should apply due diligence and time and effort to assess the cloud solution, the service provider, whoever it might be, that it meets the requirements that you need, that they have the appropriate accreditations and certifications. So primarily, yes. I guess the devil's always in the detail. Again, features the sort of top level on the surface kind of market approach. That's great, and everybody gets involved and excited about that stuff. But get into the detail. That, I think, is probably my recommendation.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think, I don't think security is the concern that it once was. I think, providers and vendors who are delivering cloud-based solutions have a lot to lose if they don't get it right, and they probably invest quite a bit in terms of kind of making sure they do get it right, arguably more than businesses are able to themselves if they continue to offer kind of operate with keeping the data internally. But what I would say is what's probably of more importance is to think about access to that data, ownership of that data, kind of getting that data out if you ever want to get it out. It's less about kind of that data getting exposed, it's more about kind of retaining access and ownership of that data.
Yeah, you touched on a point there. I would suggest some of the premium cloud service providers that they are investing millions and millions in active security measures and teams to monitor those security measures on a daily basis. That far more than you could with your own on-premise platform. So I don't think security is the concern. I think it's assess the vendors, assess the partners or the providers, and make a reasoned decision based on data. Yeah. And any more questions, Selena?
I think that's it for now, and any that we get at the back end of the webinar, we'll answer them as well.
All right. Okay. Thank you. So, so that's it. That's it for today. I really do thank you for your time. I know everyone's really busy, so we, as Paul mentioned, we'd love to follow up with you. We'll be in contact with the tool. You know, I guess you could say Sabio's been around for a while now, 20 years at the forefront of customer experience and contact centre. And you know, the last 5 years, collectively, the team here have helped, you know, many organisations move to cloud-based contact centres. You know, we've probably got in the Sabio group more than 20,000 agents sitting in cloud that we look after. But of course, in that 20 odd years that Sabio have been doing this, you know, the world has changed, technology has changed, and whilst customer expectations have probably increased with this change, what hasn't changed is what people ultimately want: make their lives easier, feel engaged and enriched in the businesses that they work for, listened to, taken care of. So yeah, really important outcome for you and any journey that you are considering to the cloud. So my thanks to Paul, thanks to Selena for being the host, and have a lovely rest of the day.
Thank you.